Morning sun. Its low angle makes for a perfect key light. Warm highlights stretch across spaces, creating beautiful, contrasty images. The only problem is, it's fleeting. You only get a short window at the beginning or end of the day, and then that look disappears. What if we wanted to recreate this light indoors in the most natural way? Nanlite sent me a couple of lights for this video, and I get to keep them, but this isn't a review. This is a lighting study where I show you how I analyze and recreate natural-looking scenarios. Let's get on with it. If we wanted a stylized look, we could easily throw up a single light and add some haze. It looks great, but it just doesn't feel realistic. For a more natural approach, we need to understand what the ambient light is actually doing during this time of day. So, let's back up a little bit. First, I set my camera on a tripod and frame a wide shot of the bathroom. I start wide because it's the hardest shot to light. If you can match this, everything else becomes much easier. From there, I can move around the space and grab different angles or focal lengths without really changing the setup much. For this shot, I'm using a 25mm DZO Vespid Prime, set to around T2.8 on the Sony FX6 with 2 stops of ND and ISO set to 800. Once I've recorded the reference shot, I turn on EL zones on my small HD monitor. This is a version of false color that shows exposure and stops, which makes it really easy to see how the light is behaving. Then I take a photo with my phone so I can refer back to it later when recreating the shot at night. Looking at the image, it's clear to see that I'll need a hard light pushing through the blinds to create this pattern on the wall. By looking out the window, I can see the position of the sun, which tells me where that light needs to come from. I'll also need a large, soft source to fill the rest of the room without interfering with the hard light. Once it's dark out, I reset the camera to the same position and settings, only without the 2 stops of ND. I begin by placing a Nanlite FC120B on a stand, adding the FL11 Fresnel and barn doors to give me more control. With this setup, I can expand or contract the beam and use the barn doors to reduce spill and shape the light to the window. While raising the stand, I think back to where the sun was positioned, and I remembered the roof line was cutting the light about halfway on the window. Since I'm only using a 120 watt light for this demonstration, I'll have to keep the light close to get maximum output, although this will sacrifice a little bit of consistency in the sharpness of the blind pattern. Next, I add a Nanlite Pavo Slim 120C and expand its pop-up softbox. This acts as my soft source, filling the rest of the room. With both lights roughly in place, I check how the lighting is working. From inside, I can clearly see the shape of the softbox and how dark it falls off behind it. To fix that, I create a large diffusion surface by attaching a sheet of silk to a grip arm on a C-stand. I also raised the Pavo Slim higher to better mimic the sky. With this adjustment, I have a bigger and softer source to fill out the window. With EL zones up on my monitor, I use the Nanlink app to dial in the intensity of each light. Once things are close, I check it against the reference photo I took earlier on my phone. At this point, the overall room levels are pretty close, but the blinds pattern doesn't feel hot enough. I can see in the EL zones that it's sitting a couple stops under the reference. The problem is, my hard light is already at 100%. To keep this setup without changing lights, I either need to lower my aperture or raise my ISO to make up for those extra stops. Since the FX6 is in Cine EI, I can only switch between the dual native ISOs, 800 and 12800. Switching up to 12800 raises the entire image by 4 stops. From there, I can bring the Pavo Slim down until it matches the reference, which brings me to the final image. Going through the process of analyzing and recreating what you see is a great way to learn what works and what doesn't. Believe it or not, creating a natural look is actually harder than making something stylized. When you're matching reality, every decision matters, and once you understand that, pushing things in a more stylized direction becomes intentional, not accidental. If this lighting study was helpful, or you have any questions, hit me up in the comments. Like the video, subscribe, and stay tuned for more. I'll have a couple more of these breakdowns coming out here soon. Thanks.